All right, let's jump right into today's deep dive. We're going to the world of ant warfare.
Ant warfare, yeah.
It's brutal, it's fascinating, and get this. It's been going on for over 100 million years.
Wow.
Billions of these tiny soldiers constantly fighting for survival.
Amazing.
We're going to be focusing on a video that takes us right into the heart of this miniature battlefield.
Oh, cool.
We're talking specifically army ants.
All right, army ants.
Now, before we even get into the video, I think it's important to kind of set the stage, you know?
Absolutely.
Ants, they might be small, but they are a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, when you think about it, with over 16,000 species and a population, I mean, get this, over 10,000 trillion individuals.
That's insane.
They make up a crazy, like 20% of all the land animal biomass on Earth.
It's mind-boggling. Like, they're everywhere. And the thing is, they're not strong individually, right?
No, not at all.
It's the collaboration. It's like they figured out the secret to collective power.
Like us humans, kind of.
Yeah. They've got complex societies, agriculture, they have symbiotic relationships.
And war, of course.
And war, exactly. So let's get to the army ants, the stars of our show today.
All right, army ants.
What makes these guys so special in the ant world?
Well, for starters, about 200 species, they've evolved a nomadic lifestyle, always on the move, looking for food.
So no permanent homes?
Nope, no time for that. They build temporary shelters called bivouacs.
Bivouacs.
Yeah, made from their own bodies. It's wild. Protects the queen and the brood.
So a mobile army unit.
Exactly. Always on the march.
But how do they hunt? I mean, they're so tiny.
It's all about the columns, these highly organized columns.
Columns?
Yep, sometimes over 100 meters long. Picture that. A column of ants, longer than a football field.
Whoa.
And anything in their path, insects, spiders, even small animals. Gone.
It sounds terrifying. How much can they actually eat on one of these marches?
Hold on to your hat for this one. Large army ant hunting parties can take out 500,000 creatures in a single day.
500,000? Are you kidding me?
No joke. It's mind-blowing.
I'm assuming other ants are on the menu, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Some army ants, they even specialize in hunting other social insects like termites, wasps.
Even other ants?
Yep, even their own kind sometimes. Imagine a whole colony terrorized by one of these columns approaching.
I can only imagine. Like, even those aggressive wasps we talked about before, they wouldn't stand a chance.
No way. Even a wasp, with all its size and anger, it gets totally overwhelmed. They might take down a few, but they're done for.
Right.
And if the wasp queen somehow survives, the army ants take their larvae.
Hmm.
Tulosis, it's called. Basically, the wasp colony can't recover.
Brutal. So these army ants are like tiny killing machines.
Pretty much.
Always on the move, destroying everything. But here's a question. If they're so aggressive, why don't they fight each other?
You'd think there'd be constant ant wars, right?
Right.
Well, think about it. From an evolutionary standpoint, constant fighting probably would wipe them out ages ago. Natural selection favors what helps them survive. And for army ants, that means not fighting their own kind.
It makes sense. So what happens when two colonies meet?
They do one of two things.
Yeah.
Either just completely ignore each other, like the other doesn't even exist, or they both just turn and walk away. No conflict.
So like a silent agreement to keep their collective power strong.
Exactly. It's about the big picture.
But if army ants are so dominant, how do other ants even survive? It seems impossible.
Right. But that's the beauty of evolution. It forces adaptation. Millions of years, other ants have come up with these incredible ways to deal with these army ant invasions.
So like what kind of survival tactics are we talking about?
Well, some ants, they just evacuate. They can actually smell those army ant scouts coming, trigger a panic mode, grab a larvae and run.
Smart.
They come back and rebuild later.
So like an early warning system.
Exactly. But of course, not everyone can just run.
So what do?
Some have evolved these special workers with, get this, giant heads.
Giant heads.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Like living shields. They block the entrances to their nests when the army ants attack. It's their last stand, basically, and it works surprisingly well.
Amazing. So all these different ways to survive in a world that seems totally against them.
It's a testament to how diverse the ant world is. Yes. And resilient.
And it all comes down to natural selection.
Pushing them to innovate, even at such a tiny scale. And speaking of innovation, there's another fascinating example. The leafcutter ants.
Leafcutter ants, those are the ones that form those trails carrying leaves, right?
Those are the ones. And they've got their own defense system against army ants.
Really? I'm intrigued.
Yeah, leafcutter ants are amazing. They build these huge, complex societies, like some of the largest in the animal kingdom, Millions of individuals, all with their own jobs.
Wow.
And their secret weapon, giant soldier ants.
Giant soldier ants. Hold on. Just how giant are we talking?
Compared to a normal worker,
Yeah.
up to 100 times larger. Their only job is to defend the colony, especially from army ants.
This sounds epic. So they can hold their own against the army ants then?
Mostly, yeah. But there's one army ant species, Nomomarmex essenbecki, that even these giant soldiers have trouble with.
Oh, no.
These guys are pros at raiding leafcutter colonies, much stronger soldiers than other army ants. The only ones who can actually break into a mature leafcutter colony.
Okay, paint me a picture here. What happens when these two ant titans clash?
Okay, picture this. A huge column of Nomomarmex essenbecki, hundreds of thousands strong.
Oh, wow.
They're marching on a leafcutter colony. The moment the leafcutters sense them, it's all hands on deck. Giant soldiers rush to the front lines, ready to fight.
I'm getting goosebumps. What's the fighting like? Do they just try to crush the army ants?
It's brutal. It's chaos. It's a total whirlwind of legs and jaws. Those leafcutter soldiers grab the army ants, try to rip their heads off with their powerful mandibles.
Yikes.
And smaller workers swarm in, grabbing and tearing them apart.
Oh, my goodness.
The army ants fight back, of course. They swarm and sting.
It's like a microscopic war zone.
But the leafcutters, they're smart. Even as they fight, they're building barricades, sealing off entrances to the nest, creating escape routes, just in case.
So strategic. But what happens if they lose? If the army ants break through?
If that happens, well, it's a disaster. Army ants flood the nest, go straight for the brood chambers, steal tens of thousands of larvae. It's a devastating blow.
So it doesn't matter who wins. Thousands die on both sides.
Exactly. A brutal reminder of what's at stake. But these battles, they're just a small part of ant warfare. There are even bigger conflicts out there.
The super colony. Super core.
Big thousands of kilometers, even entire continents. Billions, trillions of ants all working together, like these giant ant empires.
Whoa. My mind is blown.
And their wars, those are on a whole other level.
Uh-huh.
But we'll have to save those for next time.
I can't wait.
For now, let's just appreciate the amazing adaptations and strategies we've seen. Millions of years of evolution have created this incredible world of ant warfare.
It really makes you think.
It does. So before we get to those super colony wars, let's just take a second to appreciate these battles. Yeah, at the individual colony level, the scale of it all.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, those giant soldier ants taking on those waves of army ants.
Intense, right?
Yeah. It's
Right.
happening everywhere, too. Rainforests, our backyards, even in the cracks in the sidewalk.
Exactly. It really shows you that conflict. It's
Right.
not just a human thing. It's everywhere in nature.
It makes you wonder, humans, we try to move away from war, right? Peace, diplomacy.
Right.
But for ants, it's like inevitable, essential for survival.
That's a good point. It's about competition for resources, I guess. Natural selection. But it's not just about fighting, is it?
No.
There's also all this cooperation within the colonies, the way they work together, sacrificing themselves for the group.
It's a balance, then, competition and cooperation.
Yeah, exactly. This push and pull, it's not just in ants. You see it everywhere in nature, even us.
We compete, we cooperate.
It's like this fundamental tension woven into life itself.
Thinks you think. But you mentioned super colonies earlier. Wars on a whole other scale, right? I can't even imagine.
Oh, yeah. Get ready for this. Picture a colony that stretches for thousands of kilometers, sometimes across continents.
Oh.
Billions, trillions of ants, all working together like these giant interconnected cities.
It's like an ant empire.
Pretty much. And their wars, epic doesn't even begin to describe it. Millions upon millions of ants fighting for years, even decades.
This is blowing my mind. So who are these super colony empires? Like, which species are we talking about?
Well, one of the most famous is the Argentine ant, Lanipithema humile. Originally from South America, but now they're everywhere. Europe, North America, Australia.
World domination.
They're getting there. And the thing is, they're not that aggressive to each other, that is.
Wait, what? I thought ants were all about fighting their own kind.
Most are. But Argentine ants from different super colonies, they often tolerate each other, even cooperate sometimes.
That's so strange. So they're less aggressive to their own species,
but super aggressive to everyone else. It's one of the reasons they've been so successful. It's like they've created this massive cooperative network, all focused on outcompeting everyone else.
So it's still about competition,
But they found strength in unity. Don't let that fool you, though. When it comes to other ants, they are fierce.
So they're like this united front against anyone who challenges them.
Exactly. And they're really effective. They've been displacing native ant species all over the place. It's actually a big concern for ecologists.
Like an invasive species
It's a
almost.
good comparison. It really shows how human activity, moving species around, can have these huge unintended consequences.
It's something to think about. Okay, so Argentine ants, they're the super colony champs. But are they the only ones?
Oh no, there are others. There are red imported fire ant, Solenopsis invicta, for example, also from South America, also a global traveler.
Mm-hmm.
And they're known for being, well, pretty nasty.
Fire ants, oh yeah, I know those. They have a reputation.
Super aggressive, even to us. And they build huge super colonies too.
So, how do they compare to the Argentine ants in terms of like super colony power?
They're both really impressive. Fire ant super colonies, they can cover huge areas, sometimes hundreds of acres, and they're just as good at taking over from native species. But when these two empires meet, well, that's when things get really interesting.
Wait, you mean Argentine ant super colonies and fire ant super colonies actually fight each other?
Oh, yeah. When their territories overlap, it's all-out war. Millions of ants fighting for dominance. It's insane.
Okay, this is epic. I need to hear about these battles. What's it like? Who wins?
Imagine a front line stretching for meters.
Mm.
It's just this chaotic mass of ants biting, stinging, fighting to the death. The Argentine ants, they use their numbers, overwhelming their enemies. But fire ants, they have those powerful stings. It's brutal.
Millions of ants in these super colony battles. It's like a whole other world. Makes you realize we got to give ants a little more credit.
Definitely. And it's not just about the spectacle, you know. These battles, they could have a big impact on the environment.
Oh, yeah. So, like, it matters who wins.
Absolutely. When one of these super colonies takes over, it can push out native ants, change the plants, even affect other insects and animals. It's a chain reaction.
Wow. So these tiny creatures, they're shaping the whole ecosystem.
They really are. It shows how everything's connected, you know?
Yeah, it's humbling. But back to the battles for a sec.
Yeah.
Who usually wins? Is it just a matter of who's stronger?
It's complicated. Depends on the size of the colonies, the terrain, even the weather can play a role.
Oh, it's interesting.
Sometimes one side wins outright. Sometimes it's a stalemate. They just keep fighting. For years, millions die.
Millions. Man, that's hard to imagine. All this happening and we're just walking around oblivious.
Right. It puts things in perspective, doesn't it?
It does. But you know, it's funny. We keep coming back to this idea of cooperation.
Yeah.
Within the colonies, between super colonies, it's like this balance between conflict and cooperation. Maybe that's just part of life itself.
That's a big question, isn't it?
It is.
Scientists are still trying to figure it all out. I mean, on the one hand, ant warfare shows how brutal nature can be, right?
Yeah.
Resources are scarce, you got to fight to survive. But then you see all this amazing cooperation, too. Within species, between species, maybe working together is just as important as fighting.
It's like this tension, pushing and pulling. Maybe that's what drives evolution, creates all this diversity.
It's a beautiful idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
This dance between competition and cooperation playing out over millions of years.
From tiny ants to us, it's amazing.
I think that's a key takeaway here. It's not just about the battles. It's about what they tell us about life itself.
About evolution, about how we're all connected.
Exactly. Even the smallest creatures can teach us these huge lessons.
And next time I see an ant, I'm going to see it in a whole new light.
Me too.
Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of ant warfare.
It's been a journey.
It has. I'm feeling a lot of awe right now, gotta say, and a new respect for these tiny warriors.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you.
Same here. And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us. We hope you learned something new about ants today.
A world of conflict, cooperation, and a whole lot more.
Definitely. Until next time.
See ya.